It actually is some stocks, and it's kind of like stocks that we're talking about, because if you do a valuation on the craft grower license with a fully canopied 14,000 square foot, you get if you use a conservative estimate, it's approximately a 25 to a $30 million business. But now that we're really going, and before I share my screen and we dive into the actual meat and potatoes of the webinar in and of itself, let's get our supplies. First, make sure that you have your 10-day notice. I've printed one out. We're going to refer to it. This is really the biggest clue that you have from the state of Illinois so far, because like, what else do you have to go off of except for what they said? And remember, despite us being in an emerging agricultural economy, it is at its core, outside of Oklahoma, a compliance industry. And it's why you might also want some more supplies. This is the latest episode of High Times, and it has something where they talk about your HVAC, taking the moisture from it and recycling it into watering your plants. And you're like, I could enhance my my environmental plan now, because it appears that we're in this area that there's no page limits. And with that, I'm going to now try to prepare and share my screen for the actual stuff. And so let me hit the share screen button. There it is, desktop 2, and share. Great. Now I should be in the corner over there. And what we're going to go over today is the supplemental 10 days. My name is Thomas Howard. Of course, the materials here are going to be available for sale. This is an opportunity for me to really try to help everybody, you know, and we're going to cover so many points today. But before I dive into that, I just wanted to explain, I can't help everybody. I mean, like, you guys have seen these 10 days. Hopefully you still have it with you. We've created work product off of these 10 days to make the response to these as easy for you as possible. So you're as organized as possible. And we're going to do an experiment during this webinar where I'm going to show you how to answer Exhibit I. There's a reason why I picked Exhibit I, and then also that, and it's not just the High Times magazine that talks about the HVAC recycling, because it was your environmental plan. And it was a 10-page limit exhibit. It's because that one doesn't have a lot of stuff that could do with your team, like your business plan, or your custom stuff that, like your Exhibit A with your facility design. Because like your environmental plan is more, you know, you put it in there because that's what was required. And we're going to talk more about that. So like and there's only so many hours. And so I want to help the clients first, but I wanted to do something that would be able to help everybody have the best chance to answer these things as clearly, as organizedly, as efficiently as possible, so that you don't get lost in your quest to get, like, see, these were like 7 or 8. These weren't like the last 10-day notices. These were new 10-day notices. 10-day notices, I'm not going to say on steroids. I already did. Okay, fine. But they're more difficult. And what do we have to go off of? It really is this 10-day notice that you got. And so we're going to go over it. We're going to dive into it in depth. We're going to read it. We're going to use what we have on it to create a response. We're going to use my legal brain to show you how to think in ways that you can demonstrate things that you may need to argue in front of a judge. And now let's dive back into the presentation. Now I should just be a little square. Anyway, the key points that we're going to be covering today, and follow along, you know, with your 10-day for reference: how to organize your responses, how to bolster your case for your craft grow license, how to evaluate if you should move forward with your transportation 10-day notice, which one should you prioritize, and then of course we're going to do our example response regarding Exhibit I. So, what do you do first in any one of these situations? The first thing you do is swear. And of course, after that, you calendar the deadline, and then you read the 10-day notice. You have to read it, and then you try to relax, because it's a lot. You got punched in the face, just like Mike Tyson said, you know, everybody had a plan. And then this comes out of nowhere on a Tuesday, randomly. And so you try to calm down, and then you have to read the whole thing, because you're in the compliance industry. You are just following the rules. Love to follow the rules. But let's talk about some numbers real quick. There was actually 253 transporter applications. The ones that scored over 75%, they have already been notified of that. The ones that did not, they may have gotten a 10-day notice. For example, if your proof of the social equity didn't pan out correctly yet, perhaps because you did not do a proof of identification 2 types per year, which would actually mean 10 types of identification. So that was 253 transporters, 116 infusers, 458 craft growers, which of course means that your craft growers are the most competitive and your infusers are your least. We kind of figured that, but I didn't know infusers were going to be so not that competitive. This is another thing that's important to remember. Everybody got hit. Everybody. I have talked to so many people that are involved in this from coast to coast with all sorts of groups, all sorts of consultants, all sorts of lawyers, and then they've updated the department's website as well. And so this appears to be just the first of a 2-step process. You see, first you're going to have this, where we have to get through this 10-day, and then they're going to start doing the things that they punted on previously. So do check the IDOA's website. That's exactly what this is. And that is, you know, coming after we get this one taken care of. So there are more things coming and everybody's in the same boat that you're in. Do you need a lawyer yet? Yes, probably. You probably do. Because you have these complex 10-day notices with people having between 7 and 12 missing items. Now it says, again, all we have to go for is what this thing says. So we have to read it. It says missing. It does not say better. It does not say insufficient. So like me trying to amend my Exhibit I to include stuff about how my HVAC condensation is getting reclaimed into my water, and therefore it's going to reduce my water draw by whatever. That's not what it said. It said that citation to authority is missing. It didn't say that citation to authority is of a qualitative aspect. They said something of a quantitative, a presence or non-presence aspect. And again, this gets back to the need a lawyer yet? You know, is this confusing at all? Page numbers. Now we're going to ask about page numbers because they don't mention page numbers in your instructions. They do not. They mention other things in your instructions. Page numbers ain't it. Tell me if I'm wrong. Please read this. There's probably a lot of people that signed up and a lot of people that are still with us. And then the next point is it's quite confusing and vague. The nicest thing that the state did was to create the citation to authority or the reference citations. And we've created work product off of this, which is going to simplify this immeasurably for you. And so that's what we've been doing in the past couple of days. We made a lot of charts and graphs, which can facilitate you answering these much more thoroughly and straightforwardly. And so how do you write this so that you can get this thing covered? That's another thing. How can you write this supplement? Because if maybe you've been doing it like I have, where you look at what's in these exhibits and you see that what's in these exhibits is there. It's freaking there. And so you're like, all right, well, it's there. Or you see that specific citation wasn't there. Okay, so the specific citation wasn't there. Well, how do you format this in such a way so that you can argue, perhaps to a greater authority than the Department of Agriculture, that you covered everything correctly and you maybe receive a missed score? Well, of course, the last thing that everybody wants to really know is how much is this going to cost me? That's right. Everybody is price sensitive when they are thinking about lawyers. They aren't so price sensitive when they're thinking about consultants, but I kid the consultants, I really do. And they're great people. I really do enjoy them. Let's go back to the presentation. I just don't like being a tiny little square. Anyway, so remember, first you read the whole citation notice, and then you read the reference citations. Now, before you submit, you have to do this survey. We're going to go over the survey at the end as well. And then you have to format your documents. And we've already gotten our format for you. I mean, you are going to be able to have a done Exhibit I supplemental response. That's part of the documentation that we've also prepared. So we're going to show you how we prepare that with what we have. Now, also, test logging KPMG portals. That's you guys. You go test those KPMG portals. You should be doing that tomorrow. You should have done it yesterday, because they don't care. They don't. That's not their job. Their job. Why do you think, and this is one of those deals where I do kind of want to not be on a shared, why do you think they hit everybody? Because they're trying to see who actually gets this done. And then why is it so difficult that, like, it would take me a while to bang all these out, and then I'm out of time? Maybe they knew that. Maybe they also knew, like, all the consultants had already been fulfilled, and the only thing really on the line are success fees. So get your KPMG login working. And then we'll go over the survey at the end, but let's get back to the meat and potatoes here. Growing weed seemed like a good idea at the time. All, some, or none may be supplemented. Of course, all of this was derived from reading, and we should all turn an eye to it and read it. It's the what to submit. It'd be on page 2 of your thing. What to submit. That's all they tell us. Like, really, it just says step 2. It's this paragraph right there. That's really all we have to go on. Of course, the other paragraphs as well, but that's just the one that does most of the heavy lifting. Now, what does it say? It says, do not include already provided information in your original application. So don't say what you already said. And do not provide any information that does not directly address the missing information. Now, does that HVAC water reclamation directly address what's missing? Maybe, but only in a qualitative and not a quantitative way. They said it was missing, not that it sucked. And so how do you go about answering this effectively? You know, and so that's one of the reasons why they have these multiple citations that have been referenced in a very specific way. And unfortunately, they just tell you if you're measure 1, measure 2. And so, like, some of them you might get measure 1, some of them might get measure 2, measure 3. Most of B's and C's and L's, they all flew through. I haven't seen very many of those. For example, in A, measure 3 has 2 statutory definitionals. But in H, then we have 4 statutory definitionals. In E, imagine, and I saw a lot of E's. E's is going to be a very long response, in my opinion, because in E, that one's like your product and safety and labeling, and they have a citation to 6 different statutes in there. And that's all measure 1. And so it's like, well, now what's measure 1? Is measure 1 one thing, or is measure 1 6 things? And then, well, what if you find one of them? Does that mean you don't need to address it? We're going to go over all of that. All right. One of the things is maybe this is hyperliteral. We have to think like you're grading 430 craft grower applications that are 1,000 pages each. And so to do that and not go insane, you're going to employ algorithms to ensure perhaps numerical citations that look just like that are found terms in your PDFs. Perhaps that's it. Perhaps this was a computer scan for a knockout to see this, to see who's going to comply with the rules on the deficiency. And they're trying to ensure that it's, you know, maybe it's there, but you just didn't cite it correctly. That's the easier fix, this hyperliteral reading of it. And not only that, you know, this is also from a litigator's eye. What am I supposed to prove? Facts. How do I prove something is the best? That's puffery. It's really difficult to say. By the way, I'm not sure if you knew that I'm the co-host of the #1 cannabis legalization news podcast on YouTube. Almost 15,000 subscribers. And this is just my day job. And so anyway, if I'm trying to prove stuff, I have to have facts. I can't have opinions. And the best is very often an opinion. And that's why we're trying to demonstrate compliance with standards. We reference the citation. We go over what the citation is. We explain how we're complying with the citation. We move on. We have page limits. All right. What to do when it does not make sense. I'm not sure if anybody out there has been confused by this 10-day notice. I was. Many other people were. Many other quality lawyers and consultants are confused about this. And I know, because I read it, it's quite confusing. When something that you have done could be one of 5 things, that is vague by its own definition. It's like, what's your favorite color? I have 5 of them. Okay. And so what do you do when it comes like this? Now, you can explain why it might be an error or explain where it is. And so we're going to go over Exhibit I here. And we're going to show you how I went through and did it, and how I keep it organized so it's so smooth and so nice that you're going to be done before you knew it. Granted, when I say you're going to be done before you knew it, it still might take you 20 hours, but it's going to be organized. It's going to be done. You're going to have confidence. And then you could pass it off to team members. And so, which is really crucial, because a lot of you are in teams, and you all should be on teams. And so it's also going to allow you to be complete. It's going to allow you to address all the points, because you're going to go back to what they said they wanted. And what did they specifically say? And like, again, that's all, we're just going off of what it says there on that paragraph 2. And I could back up with the slides, but it's easier just to go back to number 2, where it's like, does not include information already provided or information that does not directly address the missing information. All right. Now, the missing information, 2 forms of ID per person per year. I bet that's probably going to knock out a lot of the social equity questions that are out there. Especially, and then there's some about the 10 full-time employees. I'm going to do some more digging in that, but I have some contacts that have, gotten through that wicket. So, we'll take care of that as well. But move thing at the bottom. Okay, it's not gonna. Now it does. Now, just because it's a complex endeavor doesn't mean that it's going to be disorganized. If I can't stress this enough, it's ambiguous and it's complex, and they're asking you to review basically your entire application and then create new narrative in a week. And the only thing your consultants are working for are success fees. Great. All right, so that's why we're going to bring together Monday.com. I'm not sure if you've ever used it. You should. It is a spreadsheet tool to track literally everything. We got the law. We have it cited in such a way that it's so easy. It says 30 plus pages. Actually, it turned out to be 45. It's very well organized. We essentially took the referenced citation, or the cited authority, the reference citations, and we created a searchable document for it. And then we're going to search, you do a global, you know how to do Control Fs for your 80 page or whatever, however long your Exhibit A was, because they lifted the page numbers on that one. It was like 65, then it was 70, and then whatever. But so if you're going to search like an 80 page document for specific keywords, it makes it substantially easier, especially because the cited authority is specific. And so there's search terms that are in the cited authority, and you can find out where those are on your narrative, provided you got like a good consultancy that helped you, or somebody who's got licenses that they're managing in other regulated states, not Oklahoma. And then, of course, there's the magic scores. I'm not sure if you've heard about the magic scores, but they're out there. These magic scores, I had one of my exhibits, for example, this Exhibit I, it's why we're going to be doing it, got 3 separate scores. It got a perfect, in theory, because like going back from our only evidence that we really have is the 10-day notice. I mean, you can ask the department questions. Please go ahead. I have the department has a wonderful ability to provide very vague and ambiguous and not real answers. They're quite good at it. And so this was a huge favorite by them, by the way. And so I'm very, very grateful for it, but it's all we have to really go off of. It did say when you had no space. And so like you've seen your rubric where it's, here's the exhibits, and then it's like, here's your measures, or it's an empty square. The empty squares were good. The dings were when it said measure 1, measure 2, measure 3. Some didn't have any measures if they were the non or the redactable exhibits. So, you know, it was our environmental plan. It's for compliance. There was only 10 pages. If you look at all the stuff that you have to comply with just in the statutes and the text itself, while we're going over it, you'll see it's like, that's like 7 or 8 pages of it right there that you have to put in and then you have to cite. So it's not like there was a lot of wiggle room. Why I was able to get 3 separate scores, I don't know. I don't. All right, so we're going to do this one together. It's the same one. You know, this one got 3 separate scores, despite being the same one. And remember, it's not a perfect score, but this one got like, you know, a missing, but then also it missed 2 measures for some frickin' reason. But it doesn't say poor scoring. It just says missing, which is bizarre. And now I'm going to go ahead and exit out of the presentation just to share the screen. And here is the spreadsheet that I created. I realized that it doesn't look all that freaking cool, but it spreads out like that. And now it becomes substantially easier once you understand what this is. You calendar your due date. You have your grower app here. This would correspond to all the dings that you got. And then you have you find it where you did cite it in this, because there's a high likelihood, especially if you did your job, there's a high likelihood it's there. It just wasn't appropriately cited to. So let's appropriately cite to it and then tie it back to the page in which it was. And so you can select that page there. And then this one also has like this done, working on it, stuck. So like I said, if you had teams, this is a wonderful way to keep it organized. Then you have your link to your response. And so this links to this document right here. This is our model exhibit I supplemental response. And again, I just have a dummy number 1234 underscore exhibit I underscore UR, which is another of the consult the rules. And if you consult the rules, it says mark it UR or R. It didn't say anything about the necessity to mark it UR or R if it's like an exhibit I, which is anonymous to begin with, you know? But because it didn't say that and it said mark them either UR or R, I was going to mark it UR because it's not redacted. Doesn't need to be. It's an anonymous exhibit. You know, I like to use the first person. It involves the person reading. Some people like to use the applicant. I get it. That's cool. And bean counters and whoever's grading, you have to write to your audience. Very often, I know that my audience is somebody who has to read it. And so when you use the we, people feel included. It's one of the reasons why I think the royal family uses it like that, because, you know, they're the royal family. Maybe we say we, it'll be like we're together. Anyway, those little psychological tweaks I like to use as well. But I also like to be exceedingly literal and quite well organized. And so that links out to that. And then it's your link to your exhibit. This is the actual exhibit itself. Like I said, I will provide this. This is included in the materials. For the people that want to buy a license to the materials, I will give you this. I'm going to delete this, though. The license does not extend to our narrative. However, as we get into how we go about looking for it, we go to measure 1. And for the measure 1, that's why we go to this very large doc, which is 45 pages now. It's the craft grower selection criteria. And the thing that I should actually name it is reference citations, because that is literally what it is. Hopefully I spelled citations correctly. Great. And then in the table of contents, we start with some relevant, helpful links. And then we've taken every single one of these citations and also the text behind the citations, and you can link out right to it. So it's like, well, what is that? Bang, you're there. You know, again, I'm going to have to scroll back up because I want to get into exhibit I. Let's do measure 1. And then boom, we're at measure 1. The applicant's ability to demonstrate an environmental plan or action to minimize, yada, 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 yada. And then so we pull up number 1. Demonstrating a plan to minimize carbon footprint. And so like that's one of the things where it's like, what are you talking about? It's like right there. what we're talking about is literally starting that off. But what about this unique and specific search term? So select all, select F. Oh, it does not specifically provide the citation to this, like literally. And again, I can understand why you wouldn't literally cite to this citation, because this citation had to do with the scoring of the actual application itself. And then I organize it, Exhibit I, supplemental response, measure 1, cited authority, and then the cited authority for measure 1, once we go back to this one, is this particular citation there. And so this doc allows you to then find it, pull it, but the problem really becomes once you've done that and you look at what it just says, it very well might be in your application. Then you would say like, well, how do you actually fill that out then? So like, are you supposed to answer it if it's already there? If you found it, you know, if this one wasn't specifically cited to, now you can use this to specifically cite to it and incorporate it by reference. If you didn't find it, then would you just skip it and not address it? I wouldn't recommend not doing that. I would recommend saying, as you can see, like we cited it on page 1. And then you have your cited authority for the 8C 318, which is the corollary to this one, the 8C 30-10-A. This often happens as well. There was parts of the statute and there was parts of the regulation that overlapped so much that they are identical. And so like, as you look at these, they are essentially identical. The only difference is that one is in the 8 IAC and the other one is in the 410-730-10A. And so we would cite to one, but not necessarily citing to both. And you need to cite to both, it appears, just to belt and suspenders it. And so then, you know, you cite to it. So yeah, we cited it specifically right there. And then we described how it was there, what we were doing. And then of course, we also provided for it in there. And so like we took the citation that they said, and then also put it in our supplemental response. That's it right here. And then beneath the citation to authority, we have the supplemental response where we expressly complied with it. The 13C100C, I didn't, but the statute I cited. And so that might also be one of the measure 1, one of the measure 2 things, or maybe also none of it. Because if it's actually in there and you didn't specifically cite to the ILCS or to the IAC, you still put it in there. And I'm not sure if that explains why an application like this with the Exhibit I can get 3 separate scores. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. But we take this document that we've prepared that has the relevant authority. You take that relevant authority and then you organize your supplemental response to cite to that relevant authority. And then you have your supplemental response where you explain either where it is and it wasn't cited correctly. And there's a wonderful example. There's a list one, I want to say, on it. And the cited authority for the next one, like I see, this is a very long cited authority. This exhibit was only 10 pages. And the authority that they're citing to is, you know, I'm scrolling through it, both measures, measure 1 and measure 2. And so like measure 1 and measure 2, just as you're scrolling through it is like 4 or 5 different pages. And so really you have to put that in there and then do some description on what you just put in there. And then you start running out of space because it's only 10 pages. And I think one of them was this one where they did this kind of listicle thing here. And this listicle we didn't provide specifically. So was the search term that list just like that? Perhaps. But then we go to Exhibit I and we search it. And of course, like that doesn't appear like 21, 22. But then if you start deleting it, eventually you get this. Of course, they put like a space there. But there is a, and then that comes up 5 times. There's one, and I thought it like led right off. A9, A10, there it is, where I did this. This is one of them. That's the corollary, 18 through 21, right? And you see, I cited it as C, but not C paren 18, paren 19, paren 9, and then also right up here, I cited them. That's where they are. But then this is not like, robot compliant. I didn't cite it as 300C paren 18, 300C paren 19. Here, I did that one. You see, remember that listicle that was over here? Maybe it was over here. There it is on that. And so this is how it appears in the cited authority under Exhibit I with those commas. You can see it over on, if you have your 10-day, it'd be like on page 7. And so you can see those commas there. And we kind of do it backwards. Like, here's the site. And we're like, yeah, the environmental plan is pursuant to 18, 19, 20, and 21 of this section. And so like that is not going to get caught by a robot scraping this because it's not in a format that it's searching for, even though it may be compliant. And so when we explain this, first off, of course, you make the disclosure to the supplemental authority saying like, here's the authority, here's where it is. Or like if you didn't specifically, like where it's either the sister of the statute and the reg, and they're identical, but they have separate citations. So you rectify that, or you point out where you said it. It's like, we have it on page 6 and it's also on page 3, and then you explain it. And it's like, we didn't cite it as specific. We cited it as, well, you can't really say dash dash, because what's the difference between something, and going back to the only real paragraph that we're trying to comply with in our responses. Now, that was missing from your original application. Do not include information already provided or any information that does not directly address the missing information. Now, the information directly addressing, as you can find it on page 6, that's not original. That's not in your stuff. If you would have said on page 6, we say X, Y, Z. Okay, now you're injecting your exhibit into the response. You can point out where it is and say that because that's like something new. That's what we really do in our supplemental response. And that's how you can keep it really, really well organized. You need to have that statutory authority there. And then you also need to have the spreadsheet. So, like, because you have all those exhibits and you have all those demerits. They aren't demerits, they're marks. And they're probably in there, but you still have to search it, knock out where it is, and then format the document, which doesn't look like it has a page limit. Let me share my screen regarding the how much stuff we have on this. I mean, like this is almost it's 7 pages. It spills out into the 8th page, but it's 7 pages, and this is just Exhibit I supplemental response. This was a 10-page limit exhibit. And again, like I included every scintilla of citation. And like I told you, it's like, because then what did we do here? We used the statute and we cited it and we provided it into the answer. And then we didn't necessarily have to demonstrate our compliance as much anymore. And like in our descriptions, because that's in the other exhibit, which was already 10 pages. Most of this is just to point out like, hey, we had this. It's maybe we did 18-21 as opposed to paren 18, comma paren 19, comma paren 21, whatever your robot was searching for. But that's one of the reasons why I like to go over, be painstaking. Like if you're going to format one of these for something where you got a ding, for example, I saw a lot of dings in the product safety and labeling. Let's say you got a ding on point 1, product safety and labeling. So you would format this supplemental response on it with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 statutory authorities that you can find over in our statutory authority here. I'd have to drag it way back up and then get down into the E's. Let's go to citations on 1. There we go. There they all are, these citations. And let's see how long those go on for. Oh, not so bad. It's not, well, because like a definition of label, for example, not that bad. And so maybe it wouldn't be as long as I thought, but then you would have your supplemental response, colon, and then you would look for all those search terms. And then you would say, all right, well, they're here, here, and here. Or we only cited to the sister statute, or we didn't cite to the specific definitional. You know, I think it's kind of interesting that they want us to cite to the regulation where the scoring is being done. But, you know, those types of questions as to why are irrelevant. You are just here to comply. Let's dive back into the presentation. All right, and present. So let's sum this up. I mean, we've been talking now for about 40 minutes. Anyway, let's sum up your process to your submission. Again, read the whole notice. That notice is really the only compass that you have in this. Everybody else is just guessing, and everybody else got hit. Number two, stay extremely organized. If you want us to help you stay extremely organized, we have that work product in there. The 45-page document already done, where you click, you go there, you take it, you throw it into your Word doc. And then we also have that Word doc, the Exhibit I, which is the model one. And then from that, you're like, okay, cool. This for all of those. And then the Monday.com, that can be downloaded as an Excel spreadsheet, and we can forward that to you as well. And that's just a way to, because in theory, you should have a drive on Google or Dropbox that has your application in it, which is in a searchable PDF format. And then you're able to do these knockout searches with Control F to find out where that stuff specifically is regarding the specific citations that are right in here, the specific citations. Then you can knock all that stuff. I mean, it might take you some time. Don't get me wrong, like putting this all together and like searching all that stuff and then doing some narrative. That's going to take you some time. And that's why I'm doing this, to try to save you guys time, because I can't help everybody. I'm going to help the clients first, you know. Well, let's get back to it. Be complete, but do not say anything that you already said from your application, and do not direct at anything that's missing. Do not direct your response toward anything except for what they say is missing. And the answer to the question, here's the question: what do they say is missing? This is what they say is missing. The statutory, the reference citations are what's missing. They didn't say my environmental water reclamation system where I'm estimating is bad because I'm not sure. I may have, I mean, I drafted it like a frickin' year ago. I may have had the HVAC system reclaim its condensation so we could water the plants. That's the best. That's not what they're asking for. They're asking for citations that are missing. Then what do you do after you get that in good working order? You do the survey. That's what we're going to be doing here real soon. We're going to do the survey, and then you've already calendared next Friday, February 5th, and you're going to be ready to submit this, because tomorrow, today, maybe even right now, you're tuning out and you're working on the KPMG portal. Hopefully that KPMG portal is working really well. And then after you get that in, you're going to prepare for the next wave of notices and ongoing compliance issues. You are getting to the point where you need an hourly type of relationship with an outside in-house general counsel like myself that can help you with all these very strange and ever-evolving things regarding compliance. So let's do this survey next. Because somebody called me and I was like, oh my gosh, the survey sounds a little confusing. I might want to touch on the survey as well. Don't put it off until the end. Make sure that you are ready to go before next Friday. So I'm going to exit this. I got the survey up here somewhere. Here it is. Let me back it all the way up. It's me. I'm the client's lawyer. And so I'm filling it out. Following questions are going to ask you per exhibit for which you intend to submit a supplemental response. It almost appears like the point of this survey is to make it easier for them to grade your supplemental response. You know, and then let's kind of go into why about that more. Was the suitability for the proposed facility identified as missing? A, yes. Scoring measures identified in this group were communicated within Deficiency notice please select your intended response to the suitability proposed facility of Exhibit A. Scoring measure 1, scoring measure 2, scoring measure 3, one or more scoring measures were identified and no response will be submitted. I don't think you should be able to select every single one of them, but perhaps you got all 3 and you're going to respond to all 3. Perhaps you only got 1, which is nice because, that answers the question of, do I need to address scoring measure 3 even if I didn't get it? I'm going to address scoring measure 1. Should it? No, you should not also address scoring measure 2 or scoring measure 3. They didn't say, like, that exhibit I that didn't say that it had anything missing. I'm going to say, okay. If something was missing, you would have told me, right? I realized the conundrum of how can something be missing one thing and missing 2 things all at the same time. Very complicated. So you go through your summary, a survey at the end, tell the state they did a great job, very equitable. And then that's needs to be done before, if you are going to supplement, you have to fill out the survey. So just ensure that you do it. That brings us to the exciting conclusion. I'm going to try to get out of the full screen after I say thank you and good luck. I'm here to help. I love doing my show. Please do tune in, Cannabis Legalization News. It's growing amazingly. We put on 4,000 subscribers last month. Had a lot of wonderful episodes, and we're going to have a lot more, learning a lot about the industry. You can too. If you want anything, like if you want that outline, that 45-page outline, if you want that spreadsheet, if you want that, this PowerPoint, and if you want that Exhibit I, I spent at least 10 hours on those, and I'm going to give them to you for the price of 2 of my hours. That's $800. Now, there's also the hourly. That's the outside in-house general counsel. That is $5,000 for 15 hours. That is a bargain. I cut my price from $400 to $333 for that bulk purchase. And I am only offering that to my clients first. My clients have been hit just like everybody else's clients have been hit. And so I'm going to prioritize them, take care of them. And then, of course, they have step 2 as well. So, I should be able to knock these out in fairly short order. So should you with these tools. However, if you have like 1 or 2 applications in, great. If you have all these applications in, then it can get a little bit more confusing. Anyway, lots of people on. I do have to get off in 15. I have to exit and end the webinar in about 15. And so if there are questions, we can take questions for about 15 minutes. Let me know. Hit the little raise your hand on the bottom there. There is one QA. The totals of the license. We did that on slide B or so. And that's the other thing we can talk about that I didn't talk about too much is really evaluate your transporter app. If you got a 10-day notice on that and you're thinking about doing your 10-day notice on your transporter app. All right, let's talk about your burn rate on that. Now you're going to get that app done. And then what? You got to build it out, right? Because now you have to do all the zoning and the other stuff. Then you have to buy the car and you have to, and then who are you going to ship weed for? Cresco, it's one of those deals. And so and not only that, there was 253 transporter apps. And so you're going to be able to get another shot at that. It's unlimited. Like if you get over that 75%, you get it. Why don't you wait until the customers are there? There was going to be 40 growers. That's it's wrong. There needs to be a smaller grow. There needs to be a 100 plant grow. Your smallest grow shouldn't be 1,250 plants. Shouldn't. I'm sorry. Yeah. And so next is, will I post this recording? Yes, this is going to be an on-demand webinar. Eventually, this is going to go on Cannabis Legalization News and on my other YouTube channel, Collateral Base. Go over to Cannabis Legalization News and click subscribe. That's not going to be until Monday because like by Monday, I really hope that I've helped the clients get through the vast majority of the narrative for the anonymous, not the exhibits that are like Exhibit I or Exhibit A or Exhibit D or Exhibit F. Exhibit E might take me a bit, but then, once you have those, I have some other clients that they had other consultants that did their stuff, and I have to help them. But then how can I help everybody? Well, I can give them these tools, so it's really easy for them to find the authority and to plug that in and to format the stuff correctly and to keep it organized. So I put that together for this. Okay. No, this is going to be an on-demand webinar. So like after we hang up, it'll be on demand, and that link should take you back to it. I'm not sure. This is my first Zoom webinar that I've done. DOA has made some noise about potentially issuing a round of facts for these notices. I encourage people to send in questions to DOA if they have them. Yes, please do that. Send in your questions to DOA. You could probably just respond back. Try to be as clear as possible, but also be considerate in the sense that there was 438 growers, and there was 114 infusers, and there's 253 transporters. I'm sure there's a lot of overlap there, but that's still hundreds of people hitting your email address. I mean, seriously, once this thing hit, I got like a bazillion emails. Do you have any idea how many emails the DoD is getting? Hopefully they'll get us some information. Where do we send these questions? Again, you can always email me at tom@collateralbase.com. Oh, actually, most of the people that I get from are on Google. So they hit this very often. They fill out this form right here. That's the get started form. If you want, you can also just Google cannabis lawyer, and then I'll come up, and then you could just hit me on this phone number. We also have a Chicago office. We're in the process of opening an office in Massachusetts. Oh, yes, the disqualification letters. I'm going to get off the big screen. So the disqualification letters, I've only seen those for transporter. I have not seen disqualification letters for craft growers. They basically mean that when those easy 10-day notices they did last year, the ones that I was like, I can do this in an hour and a half, as opposed to this one where I'm like, how long do you want me to take making an 8-page supplemental response to a 10-page, a 10-page exhibit. So if you were terminated or like disqualified, you're in a different ball of wax. You're actually in the administrative appeals process. So if you got disqualified for your transporter because you got those earlier easy 10-day notices and you spaced on the date and you just didn't get them done, like I didn't do one of these for that because they were way easier and they were more sporadic. And so I just didn't think that I needed to. But with this, it was a lot more difficult. And so essentially, if you failed to submit your 10-day notice that you got previously correctly and on time, then you were disqualified. And so you didn't get these. If that happened to your craft grow, that really sucks. You can then start the administrative appeal. Remember I said, like, I'm $5,000 for 15 hours. I do not take litigation for less than $10,000 as a retainer, because that is retainer money. That is not bulk buy, earned store credit only 6 hours. You can use the hours over the course of the year, that type. It's just a different ball of wax. Plus, litigation is sticky and it keeps going on. A lot of the people that sued the state previously, they're still there. A lot of those lawsuits have been resolved, not all of them. What I'm really worried about is that I'm going to get this done, or I'm going to get a handle on this, and then the IDPFR will do this same thing for the rescore. And the rescore is just going to be like this, where the rescore is now we have to create supplements for exhibits that we haven't seen in a year and a half. So it'll be like my exhibit I supplement. It'll be an 8-page supplement for a 10-page exhibit. Aren't I compliant? I'm following the rules. All right. Any more questions? Let me check the QA. How can I tell? They say open, answer live. I think I've answered all of those ones. In the chat, there's something. We have a single craft growers application. We got the state last Tuesday. Like to know I'm buying the client I've started with if you already have availability. Yeah, the single craft grower application. So if I'm going to start knocking out a new one, like I said, I'm going to talk to all my clients, be like, this is what I'm offering. I believe I can knock out theirs at a reasonable one because I wrote that. I have a deep understanding of that. And then I have another client that I need to, and it was done by another good consultant, a consultancy out of Colorado. And so I'll be able to knock that one out in fairly short order because I'll already have like the pieces of the responses in that Word file that has, the supplemental response and the citation to authority. And so I'll be able to knock that out fairly short order. But then it gets into like next week, especially considering like those are just the narrative. I need to like help some people with their social equity or with their state of Illinois stuff. Their state of Illinois stuff, that's tough. 10 forms of ID, 2 forms of ID per year, 5 years, at least. That's annoying, especially with the people that were social equity. They usually rent, so I'm not sure when I'm going to have availability. Dan, I think the realistic timeline, and so like, I'm going to hit answer live and see what that looks like. All right. Sure. All right. So Dan asks, do you think there's a realistic timeline for the licenses discussed today being awarded? A realistic timeline for the licenses being awarded is they do this, then they do the next step and make sure the zoning is right, and that you got money. And then they'll probably make some awards. That might be another month. So I'm assuming it's going to be around March. And I'm also assuming that these people still get these. I can't wait. I'm not, that's why my hair's so long. I'm not getting a haircut until I get my COVID shot. I don't think I'm going to be eligible to get my COVID shot until like August. So I'm going to look like a wook at that Fish concert this summer. And it's probably going to be in March, especially if the trends in the coronavirus continue to go. Then you can make these awards. It's March. You can line up your general contractors. You can get out there. You can start building. I would do gutter connects. I would. I'm sorry. You guys need to get ready for the $1,400 a pound stuff. All right. Well, cool. Thank you so much, guys. We had quite a few people sign up. Quite a few more stick around all the way until the end. And if you want help, email Tom at Collateral Base, search for Cannabis Lawyer. You'll see it, cannabisindustrylawyer.com. You can search for Cannabis Industry Lawyer. You can call that number. Leave me your email address. We'll email you a licensing agreement if you want, just the forms. Anybody can have those, and trying to help as many people as we can. But now I'm going to go help the clients, take care of them. And after that, I might have some availability toward the end of next week, or I might be like, I can't think anymore. Okay. Join us this weekend, though, on Cannabis Legalization News. We have some more great guests.